I started my first company when I was about 19 in my second year of university.
You were literally running the Equip show by yourself.
There's unfortunately a ton of shady stuff happening in the supplement industry. It's what I've learned is that it's often like the atypical influencer. Then we'll have a sneaky partner and can drive tens of thousands of dollars of revenue.
Hey friends, welcome to Above the Fold podcast. I'm your host, Jess Servion. We're going to be talking about everything in your customer's journey. You're going to learn things about customer experience, brand experience, and marketing secrets that help you drive your brand success. So stay tuned, buckle up, and let's get into the episode.
Welcome back to another episode of Above the Fold with me, Jess. This week, I'm in LA and I am with my friend, Kieran Mathew, who is the GM and partner of Equip Foods. One of my favorite brands. I'm not going to spill all the tea. He's going to tell you about it, but one of my favorite brands and favorite people in the D2C world. Kieran, tell the homies who you are.
That was too kind. I'm Kieran, as Jess mentioned. I run Equip Foods, took over operations about 3 years ago. And it's been a wild ride that I'm sure we'll dive into. I just moved to LA in the Venice area from Toronto, where I was born and raised. And yeah, excited to be in the US. All the teams based out here, so it's good to be closer to the action.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited for this new California era for you. Toronto is cold.
It is nice to be in the sun in December.
And get that vitamin D,
yeah.
Right?
The energy levels are much higher having sun exposure during the day and being able to work outside as well in the winter.
I know. Meanwhile, I left Chicago at 13 degrees today.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, I know. Okay, well, before we get into Equip Foods, though, I really want to talk about your background because I think that you have a really dope background. I think it's really interesting. You're so bright and you actually started a business really young, and I want to talk about that. So, tell us about the business that you started in college and, honestly, your journey to becoming an entrepreneur.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started my first company when I was about 19 in my second year of university. We say university in Canada versus college. So I'm trying to change my vocabulary a bit, but
you gotta be surfer
not all the way there yet. So long story short is when I went to college, I thought I wanted to go to law school. And then I started asking a bunch of lawyers for coffee and realized that was absolutely not the right path for me. So I began to work with some startups on campus, basically just knocking on doors saying, hey, I'd love to do some marketing or sales work for you to try to find some intersection of competency and interest. What I found in that startup work is that I really loved the sales and marketing side and that we were pretty successful in doing a lot of grassroots student marketing campaigns. I began to question why bigger brands were not doing the types of initiatives we were doing at the time in terms of micro-influencer work, integrated digital and experiential marketing campaigns, very targeted and localized to students. So I started then knocking on bigger brands' doors and saying, hey, I'm a student. I've just done all of this work for startups. And I also did a little bit of research on what types of brands students were consuming, why, etc. So I came prepared in those cold emails with a bit of data saying, here's what students are consuming in your category, here's why, and here's how I think we can help change the conversation.
Wow.
So I just played the numbers game, eventually got in the door with a few mid-market Canadian brands, and that turned into building a marketing services business, started doing a little bit of consulting, helping these companies do research in the university and college segment, and then that turned into strategy work, and then it became clear that there was a need for actual execution of the strategies that we were creating. So I built an agency that did digital and experiential marketing across Canada. We ended up almost exclusively working with the really large brands, like some of Pepsi's brands, some of L'Oreal's brands, some of Procter & Gamble's brands, the Canadian banks, big tech like Lyft, and some others. So it was a small business, but it was a really impactful way for me to start and learn. And it sort of led naturally into what we're doing at Equip. I did that for about 6 years, and it was really, really impactful experience, but I felt very constrained creatively because we were working with these massive brands that had so much red tape, and also we were just constrained by regulations as well as budget, etc. So even when we would put together something that felt impactful, what we would actually be able to do once those refinements were made in terms of red tape, budget, etc., would be an often pared down version. So I was really curious to see if I could leverage my learnings in helping a lot of those big CPG brands grow to own and operate my own consumer brand. So I was looking at doing my own thing for a long time and testing some things out. I was kind of serendipitously connected with my now business partner, Anthony Gustin, at the time. And yeah, that sort of leads into the Equip journey.
Yeah. I think that's crazy. Like, it's such a crazy journey because you were so young, right? But you're so driven. And I think that's the really inspiring piece of like telling that story, is that you're so driven to ask the questions of why and then continue down the path of why to then that led you to, starting your own business at such a young age, right?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing there was just which Anthony would also say is just persistence. So
yeah.
Since I was young, it was really challenging to have the credibility to earn business from some of those big brands, like some of Pepsi's and L'Oreal's brands. But what I would do is just play the numbers game on outreach. And then eventually, once we got in the door with somebody, they would almost never be willing to do work together. But I would just keep emailing them every single month saying, hey, here's what we're working on. If there's any way we can help you in the future, let us know. And then eventually we started getting a couple big brands under our portfolio, which helped create a little bit of credibility to our company. And I mean, it was probably the sales cycle with a lot of those big companies was probably 2+ years from the time I had that first meeting to the time we actually got a contract executed. And it was just incessant follow-ups with sort of, I guess, a little bit of experience sharing on what we were up to, results we've driven, etc. Similarly with Anthony, when I got introduced to him, I thought the business was super interesting. And he would say I probably emailed him like 20+ times, just knocking on the door saying, hey, here to help if I can. And then, eventually that led to something bigger.
And Anthony, so obviously Anthony isn't here, so like I don't want to speak for him and like his journey, but he was the founder of Perfect Keto before, right?
Yeah, so the long story short-ish on the Equip side is that he started Equip first in around 2016. Had a few clinics in San Francisco, was interested in creating real food supplements for his patients and others because he just saw that the average supplement had all kinds of junk in it that was totally unnecessary. No one was really doing beef protein at the time, which we can chat on later. He decided to do beef protein. And then 12 months after launching Equip, it had become a really solid small business, but he decided to launch Perfect Keto, which was very early to the ketogenic wave, keto supplements, obviously, and grew almost exponentially relative to most CPG brands in a short amount of time. There was one team managing both companies. So naturally, the Perfect Keto company that was doing 90 times, 80 times more perhaps than Equip at the time got most of the team's time and attention, while Equip was just kind of sitting there as a really solid small business for 5-ish years until we got connected.
Yeah. Okay. So you guys got connected. Your persistence is how you continued on. But so I think what's really interesting, and I said this off camera, but I really want to talk about like being a GM in a business, right? Like I think that role, not all the time, but is thrown around a lot in CPG, right? And I think that there is a difference of like being a GM in a one-person show versus a GM with like 5 people, right? Yeah. I mean, not to be like, all right, we're boosting Kieran's ego like this in episode, but this is why I wanted you to come on, because I think what's really amazing and like how we met almost 2 years ago, and you were literally running the Equip show by yourself, right? You had agencies and you had like other people helping out, but you were running it.
Right.
And I would love to just talk about, all right, so you've met Anthony. He said yes. What was that like? What was your first line of business walking into Equip?
So my goal when I was exploring what to do next after the agency was to own and operate a consumer brand.
Right.
And this opportunity was interesting because I knew Anthony had a lot on his plate, wasn't super involved operationally. So going in, I thought there might be an opportunity to kind of play founder without actually having that title. I'd have some skin in the game and I could do pretty much anything and everything. At the time, Anthony put together a long list of what he thought were immediate things to tackle and then longer term things to tackle. And I was actually pretty daunted by the list because I didn't have a lot of e-commerce experience. I had experience running a small business in my agency and helping consumer packaged goods brands grow. But the tactical e-com side was all needed to be learned, including like supply chain, demand planning, and more on the finance side as well. So I was pretty daunted. I wrote a little note in my iPhone that said refuse to consider failure because I just found like I just wanted to dive in and see what I could learn. And Anthony had that context. He knew that there was a learning curve ahead, but he was willing to embrace it, which I really appreciate. And so going in, my goal was to kind of like play founder, have as much freedom from an operation standpoint as I could, while still leaning on Anthony for strategic kind of partnership and guidance, as he really understood the brand better than I did at the time. So that was the intention. What I initially saw when looking at Equip, and one of the reasons I was so excited about this opportunity is that it looked like such a strong business fundamentally, good products, great products, I would argue, with happy customers, but there was also just a lot of low-hanging fruit to tackle in that the website experience was subpar. The products were pretty consistently out of stock due to lack of kind of proper demand planning, as well as that was peak pandemic days, so all kinds of supply chain issues. The customer experience at the time, again, simply just due to lack of time and attention, was a little bit scary in that there were a lot of tickets and people waiting a long time to get responded to. But I looked at all these things, and at its core, I saw happy customers that love the product. So I thought, okay, well, if we just tackle a lot of this low-hanging fruit between building a better, more functional website, providing a better customer experience, and simply keeping products in stock, we could have a pretty sized impact for that work. So that was my goal in the first year, is understand the business, understand the customers, tackle a lot of the low-hanging fruit, and build a vehicle that would be primed for scale once we were ready to begin pushing kind of the gas on marketing efforts a little bit, as marketing spend at that time was probably like close to zero. So there was just tons of opportunity, and it was really important to figure out where to focus on or what to focus on early on, because it was really just me. There were a few contractors supporting in various ways at the time, from an EA to a supply chain person to customer service VA. But the EA and the supply chain person were in the process of leaving as soon as I came on board, so I had to take on whatever they were doing before. And then the VA, obviously, it's hard to get. Which
one was it?
Consistency. I don't know. I can't remember at the time who it was, but or how long she stayed on board. But
VAs do work.
They do. I absolutely love VAs, and we have two that are great right now. One is, I would say, exceptional. And I think the biggest thing is when you have a great VA, just working really hard to retain them like you would any other employee, because the turnover is usually so high, which is just necessitates having really great SOPs and training, especially on CX. But if you can just treat that as a normal employee and do whatever you can to retain them, make sure they're happy in the role, etc., then you can have a very, very high functioning, high skilled person at a reasonable cost, and makes a big impact in the business.
I mean, I agree with you. I think I see a lot of people. So I'm in my own like founder journey right now, right? And like I see a lot of people just like on D2C Twitter or like other places saying that like they, or even just working with other agencies on other various things, like they have like the VA structure. And I always kind of was like, no, like, I don't know. I'd rather like bring in house. But at the same time, when you're one person, it's really hard to like have that full employee experience. Sometimes it's like you need somebody to come halfway, teach them the things, and then develop out the process while you're in it, you know? And going back to your point, and I just wanted to touch on this specifically because I think a lot of people will be like founders listening to this episode. The VA model can work. You just really have to write down what it is that you do. And 100%. If you don't write it down, make a loom, please, for the love of God. Record
looms,
it, you know?
Looms, SOPs, all absolutely critical to having a high-performing VA in-house. But I found with ours, one in particular, obviously, she's super proactive as well, which you don't always get. So I would assume they're going to be relatively reactive and build the SOPs and looms, etc., with that assumption versus assuming they're going to be very proactive. But if you get lucky and have someone that's super proactive, then that's a big win as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it is honestly a crapshoot, though.
Yeah.
Truthfully. Like, I've gone through quite a few already in like 1 year of business, you know? Okay, so I want to go back to like one of the things. So I know we've like talked a lot about you like coming in as a GM and like your relationship with Anthony and like him trusting you, which is really awesome. But the one thing I really want to dial back into, though, is the happy customer.
Right.
So Equip Foods, like, tell me about Equip Foods and like the differentiator of Equip Foods, right? Like, obviously don't give away the secret sauce.
No, our core business is grass-fed beef protein powder. And our customers are predominantly women in their 30s to early 40s. When I took over operations, there was not very much customer data. So just looking at the packaging, we're in the process of updating this packaging as it hasn't been updated since 2017. So the logo is going to change a little bit. Visual identity, etc., is going to change. And I'm super excited to release that at some point in 2025, probably early Q2. But I would have assumed that our customers were all gym bros buying grass-fed beef protein, which feels like a very male product. But in talking to customers, doing some customer surveys, et cetera, over 3 years ago now, it became very clear this was a feminine audience, and now it's 80% plus female. So these women are typically buying a beef protein for the first time. We don't have all of our competitor data, but based off of the information we have, we believe we're the market leader in beef protein. And as a result, the impetus is on us to educate customers on why beef. So we've been fortunate that a lot of that education is being done kind of like self-education when people come to buy our products, and we're trying to do a better job of communicating that ourselves now. But what typically happens is a lot of these customers have tried a whey protein or a plant-based protein, have major digestive issues with both of them, also just generally don't feel good after consuming them, and they don't like the taste. So the three kind of core, I guess the intersection of three things which we try to hit are taste, digestibility, and really short real food ingredient lists, basically. So our chocolate, for example, here is just grass-fed beef protein, cocoa powder, and a little bit of stevia. But it tastes, I'm biased obviously, but it tastes delicious. It's their best seller by far.
I mean, I work with a lot of health and wellness.
Yeah, we'll leave it up to the people, but feel free to read our Amazon or D2C reviews and see. But that's the value prop, is basically easy to digest, delicious, while not sacrificing really high quality real food ingredients. And now we do a lot on the testing side as well. So third-party tested for heavy metals, pesticides, contaminants, and other junk that have unfortunately found their way to our food supply. Our customers are very educated and will ask tough questions. So we just have to do our best to get all of the data possible on our products so that we're prepared to answer all of those questions. Like, is your product glyphosate free, which is a pesticide found up in things like Roundup, which unfortunately is in most food, from beef to fruit to anything else. And we have to be very careful about what ingredients we source. We test all of those ingredients first to make sure they perform well, are pesticide free, low in heavy metals, etc. And then we work to formulate really delicious products with those constraints of having really high quality real food ingredients. Yeah.
I mean, granted, I'm a little bit biased, so I do see the questions that come through. But I will say, another differentiator is, even though you talk a lot about the testing and the education, and you're right, the customer does come and they are asking very hard hitting questions. But I think a differentiator for y'all is actually the transparency.
Right.
Because I've run across even my own health journey, right? I've run across, there's so many things out there that we're just socially influenced by, whether it's on TikTok or Instagram and all these places. And it's go and buy this protein powder. And then you find out oh, it's actually not that good for you. Or there's a test about it, right? truthfully, like, I'm an uneducated health and wellness customer,
Right.
and I'm not as educated as like the customer that would maybe like knowingly go in to pick up a Equip. Like, I would need to be influenced to go pick it up, right?
Right.
But what I appreciate about Equip is the transparency, and truthfully, like, across all of Anthony's brands,
Yep.
is the transparency. And I think that is the biggest differentiator, is that you're not lying to the customer,
Right.
you know? And I just
Yeah.
think that's really important.
Yeah, there's unfortunately a ton of shady stuff happening in the supplement industry. It's not that tightly regulated, obviously. So people lie on their ingredient lists, they lie on their macronutrient declarations, etc. So we try to provide as much transparency to customers as possible to show that we've tested to prove what's listed on the label is actually in the products, and then to show what's not in the products, of course, being those pesticides, heavy metals, contaminants, bacteria, etc. So yeah, it is, the transparency side is pivotal to us, and we're working to find ways to make that even more prominent to customers. We have have a module on our Prime Protein product page which shows test results as well. Now we're working on building that out a bit further with a great partner there. So we're investing more and more into that, because right now, if customers ask for those COAs, we will send them all via email. But obviously, if we can be a little bit more proactive and have all of that data displayed in a somewhat eloquent way on our site and PDPs, that would be even better.
Yeah, well, the one thing I always say is answer the questions before they become questions. And I think, that transparency is really key, but like,
Right.
even like the innovation across like the user experience and showing that, because like a customer is going to ask about it. Like an educated customer in like in health and wellness, like,
Right.
are going to ask for those things, or if they're getting educated in that space, like, they're going to ask for it. So just be honest,
100%.
you know?
Well, if you create great products and there's nothing to hide, obviously, so you can be fully transparent, but the challenges become when you are looking to cut corners to get costs down, etc., and then it just snowballs. And given we have very health conscious customers that are very well educated, there's no cutting corners in our business. Not that we would want to anyway, but we have to be very thoughtful about what we're sourcing, how it tests, etc. And then just listen very closely to customer feedback as well.
Yeah.
Because even if we're exclusively using real food ingredients, tides turn on certain ingredients, obviously. So we just want to try to get ahead of the trends. So we're almost always doing surveys, talking to customers, obviously, through CX, and just trying to understand needs, preferences, etc.
Yeah. And then the other thing I want to talk about too is social influencing. So what I think is like really interesting, and you're going to tell them about this, okay? But what I think is really interesting is that the organic way that Equip has grown. So it's not just like going out and like doing the paid ads and like throwing a ton of money at performance. You guys have actually grown more through like affiliate and influencer, and really doubled down on that customer, that like 30 to 40 well-educated woman. Like, I'd love, any sort of like, not to give your secret sauce away, but like, I think that the way you guys have done it is very different than I see with other brands. Like, I think the tactics are just really doubling down with the right influencers, but I'd love to hear from you, like, what that growth strategy looked like.
Yeah, we've been a pretty big anomaly in e-commerce in the last few years. When I took over, it was a modest 7-figure brand, and we've grown by about 22x roughly since then. So it's been very high growth while prioritizing profitability. Our goal is not to grow at all costs. It's to build a really healthy, long-term profitable business. So affiliate was the core of that growth for the first 2.5 years. We only started leaning into paid media, which is obviously the primary growth engine for most e-commerce brands, in January. And we've been very cautious to test that channel, try to find efficiency, be profitable from first order, versus throwing money on it and seeing if we can scale even faster than we already are. So our priority has been customer experience, great products, and then also just profitable, consistent growth, because we want to have a great long-term business and not something that's hype-ridden and short-lived. So I would say we've been very under the radar versus a lot of other brands in the space. despite having pretty meaningful growth, which is great by me. I think this is probably the first time we've talked about Equip's growth publicly anywhere in the last 3 years. So it's been nice. I've enjoyed being kind of under the radar in that regard. But on our affiliate side, the logic was basically if we can get people of authority, even on a small scale. So a mom within her mom's school group, for example, in Texas, or a health influencer in California, if we can get people that have trust within their communities to, one, try and hopefully love our products, and then two, just speak honestly about them within those communities, both in person and digitally, they're probably going to encourage others to buy, especially if we can get them to very clearly articulate why this is different, which, one, yes, 100% transparency, but two, the biggest angle for us is beef protein, given there's not a lot out there. So there was a bit of a foundation when I stepped in that there was a pretty decent affiliate roster. That was Perfect Keto's primary growth engine as well. So I had some good coaching from Anthony, and then also just looking at what the team had done historically within Equip to understand what works, what doesn't work, etc. But we wanted to triple down on that. One, because it's just a very profitable growth engine. It's mostly a commission-driven payment structure, which means we can be profitable from order one. But two, the biggest thing for me is we really control that growth lever, whereas on Meta, we can be reliant on it. There's almost infinite room to scale, and the ability to scale that channel fast is a little bit easier because you can just put more money into it effectively and try to come close-ish to maintain efficiency, whereas to scale this affiliate channel, we have to onboard more and more partners. But that was always the goal. Find high-trust people, get them products. If they love the products, get them to promote the products to their audience in a way that's natural to them, and then try to do that at scale. We've had a lot of success in that kind of like mom-fluencer world, and not necessarily with like the traditional hype mom influencers. We've probably tapped into that a little bit, and kind of unintentionally, but more in like the, I don't know, larger micro influencer space. So 50,000 to 100,000 ish followers that have very engaged audiences and also often influence people in person via health coaching, via their community, etc. So that's been our priority. It was really our only growth channel, growing by like 15-ish X in the first couple of years. And then we started leaning to the more traditional channels while still making affiliate our top priority. So it's at its core, it's really like an Instagram influencer program that is very driven by mom-fluencers essentially, and females more broadly. Because a lot of the time when people hear affiliate, they think like premium publishers, like a BuzzFeed or Vice doing listicles on paid listicles on top 10 protein powders or other. And those are viable growth engines, but there's a lot of fraud in that space. There's still fraud in the affiliate influencer world, but it's a lot easier for us to catch it and crack down when it happens. So, I'm not sure if that fully answers the question.
No, it does, because it actually leads into something I want to talk about consumer behavior. So like we're talking about like mom influencers, and like that's like a really good core audience for Equip. At the end of the day, the moms are the ones that influence the household, right? Yeah. So it's like you've organically grown across these like mom influencers in this like influencer programming, right? And these individuals are influencing their home. So they're getting like that male audience for you. They're also like feeding their children like more healthily, but also exactly what you're saying, like, okay, in the mom groups, like all these things, like they just have such like a higher influence, and like to grow in that such an organic way is going to create sustainability, because it's really doubling down on the consumer behavior 100%. And not just like pushing out an ad to like you're retargeting a random audience that you don't have much about.
And that stickiness is amazing. I mean, in my previous business, we were partnering with more of the traditional influencers when we were doing larger scale partners. And that's kind of exactly what you picture when you think influencer in your mind. But what I've learned is that it's often like the atypical influencer who, if I was looking just at some of these people's Instagrams without seeing much data, I would assume, oh no, this person's not going to drive any volume. But then we'll have a sneaky partner in some mom in Texas that has 50,000 followers and can drive tens of thousands of dollars of revenue very consistently every single month and just becomes the best partner for us possible, loves the products, uses them every day, etc. So I think that's one of the learnings in this world, in the Equip world, is don't sort of judge a book by its cover. Be willing to test a lot of different archetypes and different influencers and see what works best. But the one thing that works really well for us too is recipe content. I would say like over 50% of our partners that are high converting create really consistent recipe content. And that's one of the ways we've been able to win, because beef protein works really well in baked goods. It works really well in ice cream, like the Ninja Creamy, for example, which has been
Somebody gave me that.
Very trendy.
The wedding gift. And I'm like, what do I do this? And I was like, Equip Foods.
So we, and when you think of protein, you often think like plastic shaker bottle, throwing away in there with water, and it's just not delicious.
Right.
But we are very clearly finding that when we give people very delicious ways to consume our protein that aren't ridiculously heavy lifts, then one, they're more inclined to try it. Two, they're more inclined to repurchase it, because not everybody wants to just consume their scoop of whey in a shaker bottle with water every day. And not a lot of people feel great after that. That is a whole other thing.
Hey, y'all. Quick little interruption for a message from our sponsors. If you're serious about clean, real food nutrition, you need to check out Equip Foods. They cut through the noise of the supplement industry with Prime Protein, a grass-fed beef protein that provides the nutrition of 4 ounces of beef in every scoop. No gut issues, no fillers, just pure high-quality protein that actually tastes like a dessert. I've been using Prime Protein in my morning shakes, and it's a total game changer. Whether you're into vanilla, chocolate, peanut butter, salted caramel, strawberry, or even iced coffee, there's a flavor for you. Plus, they have an unflavored version with just one ingredient, grass-fed beef. Equip is all about transparency and quality, so you know exactly what you're putting into your body, no junk, no surprises. If you're ready to upgrade your protein, head to equipfoods.com and choose the subscribe and save option to get 15% off your orders. Enjoy flexible delivery schedules and the convenience of having Prime Protein delivered right to your door. Shout out to Kieran from Equip Foods for being a part of this episode. At Open Lake Collective, we specialize in building brands that last. From brand strategy that defines who you are to customer experience design that keeps people engaged, to retention and lifecycle marketing that turns customers into loyal advocates, we're here to help you create meaningful connections that drive growth. Open Lake Collective, let's build a brand they love. Now let's get back to the show. Wait, can we talk about the one big win though? Well, not the one big one, but like a cool win. The Lauren Bostic.
That was unexpected. So Gwyneth Paltrow gave us a shout out on the Skinny Confidential. Kind of randomly, Lauren asked her what she had for breakfast that morning, and then she said she had Prime Protein, and I forget I think she had a smoothie or something, but she did. Anyway, so that was funny and very unexpected. We don't really know how she got the products, and we didn't know how that she was purchasing it, but really. But
exactly like the exact trail that you're saying, right?
There's a high probability that she either follows or is connected with one of our partners, or is like one person removed from them and has tried the products as a result. I mean, we know of a few other great big names that have tried the products and love them, and unfortunately haven't promoted them, but
organic.
It feels good. I mean, I'd rather sell to hundreds of thousands of people than one celebrity, obviously, but you'll never be dissatisfied with a little social proof like that. And just, it's always interesting to understand how those types of people are finding the brand as well.
Yeah. And one more thing I also want to add is what's interesting about the Gwyneth Paltrow thing too is like, okay, so maybe like one removed from like a partner or something, we discovered it somewhere, but also that unlocks that functional medicine audience as well from Gwyneth Paltrow, because I told you this like a long time ago, my functional medicine nutritionist, she was like giving me a list of things, and she was like, oh, you should really try this Prime Protein. I was like, sure, I'll order it because I work with them. But it was like, it was really like a cool moment,
Right.
right? Because in that functional medicine space, because you guys are so clean, because it's like this transparent ingredient and good for you, right? Good for you type of protein, not like crappy. It's really cool to see it in that space. And functional medicine and like overall is growing.
Yeah, that has been somewhat intentional, somewhat organic in that we do have some functional medicine practitioners that love the products and then ask to be affiliates primarily for in-person clients. But pretty consistently every single month on our post-purchase survey, we're seeing around 20% of growth being word of mouth / organic. And your experience there is definitely not an exception to the rule. It's quite common. I've had lots of people come up and say, hey, my functional medicine practitioner or nutritionist, dietitian recommended this product. And those people, more often than not, are not paid partners or affiliates. They just have discovered the product through those communities and are willing to share it with their clients.
Yeah.
So yeah, really obviously appreciate that. But it's hard for us to measure unless they're in a program.
Yeah.
But it's very clear that that's happening consistently on a grassroots scale, which is very meaningful for us. And we're trying to think about how we can scale that while still maintaining the trust that those people will have with their audience, because the challenge becomes if they are an affiliate and they receive compensation from those referrals, then
It feels dirty.
Yeah, it feels different, certainly. So the number one thing is, did they discover the products on their own? And then if they actually love the products, sure, I don't see why we shouldn't give them a cut. But a lot of those practitioners in particular just prefer to refer in their own way and not be compensated because of that specific reason. So
Yeah. Well, I think what's also the other thing that I want to talk about, and like they're not displayed on here because I think you put them down, but the gummies, the collagen gummies, colostrum. I don't know why I said collagen. Because this is collagen right here. Well, two things. Colostrum as a whole has like become very popular.
Yeah.
Like what? I'd love for you to explain a little bit about that,
Right.
but I would also like to get into like the reasoning on like the gummy version rather than a powder.
Yeah, the colostrum category is probably the hottest category in the supplement industry right now in terms of just year-over-year growth.
Yeah.
And we're very fortunate that a few brands in the space are spending 100 times more than we are and educating customers while we are shipping the same ingredient as the top brands are. We all source from the same supplier, regardless of proprietary positioning, et cetera, that's out there. And we can benefit from really the trend that's happening in that category while not having to make some of the claims and spend as much on the marketing side. So we've benefited from that. That category is really hot because one, colostrum is really beneficial to gut health and to repairing the gut lining. And then two, it's well researched to prevent influenza type viruses like the flu.
I didn't know that.
So
part.
most of our customers take it for gut health and then just staying healthy, immune system boosting. There are some pretty well researched skin health benefits as well, kind of similar to collagen. So it is one of nature's best superfoods. And since it's just a real food supplement ingredient, there's no real risk of consuming it. The only downside would be if you have lactose intolerance, but even then people with lactose intolerance often find it easier to digest than milk products because it's actually lower in lactose than milk. So it's just a really incredible superfood, and the downside of consuming it's very low, the upside's very high, and it's really well researched compared to most other ingredients out there. There's a ton of more research being done now as more and more money pours into that space. So we have the powder, unflavored, which is everyone's doing really. And there's not much that differentiates anybody's unflavored powder, but good sourcing is obviously key.
Yeah.
So then we were sort of questioning, okay, how can we make this more convenient? Because people are consuming a lot of powders, obviously. The colostrum scoop's very small, so it's easy to mix in with protein, collagen, et cetera, which is great. But we were kind of thinking, how could we make this more fun? So we spent probably 12 months developing a gummy. The challenge with colostrum is that when it's heated at high temperatures, the nutrients can degrade, primarily the IgG, which you'll see on every single colostrum brand's product page. That's one of the most vital nutrients that's in there and has some of the biggest benefits to the gut health, immunity, etc. So, and there's a lot of IgG isolate supplements out there now. So we needed to formulate a gummy that, yes, at some point has to be processed at a higher temperature to turn the ingredients into gummy form, but only for a short enough amount of time that all the net micronutrients, but primarily that IgG, does not degrade and is maintained kind of before and after. So if it's 25% before, and then we need to make sure that that purity doesn't degrade during the processing. So that's why it took so long.
Yeah.
And most of the manufacturing partners we talked to said it can't be done.
You prove them wrong.
Yeah, it was just tons and tons of trial and error until we figured out exactly how long they could be processed for, the right combination of ingredients as well to almost like protect the colostrum during that processing.
Right.
And then we just tested to validate the hypothesis, and thankfully it worked out. So one of the reasons I was initially curious about that too is when I was talking to parents that were giving their kids colostrum, they're like, this is awesome, but it's hard for me to figure out how to give my kid another powder in the day. And we were doing just unflavored at the time. So they're like, okay, well, it's not great just in water. I'll throw it in protein or other shakes or smoothies. But how much easier and more convenient would it be for kids if we had a really delicious gummy that they could just have morning, night, whenever's convenient? Yeah. So that was my initial kind of impetus. And I texted Anthony one day saying, why don't we just try to figure out how to get these in gummies? I'm sure kids would love it, but also it'd be a great way to take these supplements on the go, which is not being done right now in the category. So yeah, we were first to market with those, which was great. And it's been a really beneficial product for us. We're working on some new flavors and more there. So I'm excited to share.
Don't give them the secret sauce.
I won't.
Well, that leads me into my next question about like just innovation, right? Like,
Right.
So, everything that Equip does and everything that you do is like very methodical. Like you're thinking through it. You're not just like throwing some money at it and just saying like, we're going to get this done, right? Like there's testing, like live testing, which I also appreciate because there's products. We won't go there. But, obviously we have like colostrum gummies, clean coffee too, which is like, some would even say maybe even a pivot, but I don't think that's like a pivot away from like protein powders and like health, because actually going back to even the uneducated part, because you guys started selling clean coffee, I question all of my coffee now.
We context on that is we shipped a mycotoxin-free, mold-free, regenerative, organic coffee called Clean Coffee that is also free from pesticides, heavy metals, etc. And we partnered with small farm cooperatives in Nicaragua to produce that. So we're able to work with some absolutely incredible small farms that do have supply constraints. Scale will be the biggest challenge with that problem, but can produce the best quality coffee on the planet. One of the things that we've seen with lower quality coffee is it creates jitters, digestive discomfort as well, just generally like not feeling great after consuming it, bigger caffeine crash, etc. So one of the things we started looking into and thinking about is this a caffeine problem, or is this just a quality / sourcing issue where if you don't have all of those molds, mycotoxins, pesticides, etc., when you're consuming coffee, you just feel better after getting that caffeine? And there's not a lot of great research on that, but anecdotally, people do feel better when they consume really high quality coffee. So we decided to produce that. Also, the primary occasion for use of our prime protein is first thing in the morning, almost as like a meal replacement when people don't have a massive appetite. They want to get a good protein source in to fuel their day. So a lot of people were consuming it with their protein with coffee, still do, just mixing it with a hand frother, and then it almost acts as like a natural creamer because of the naturally occurring collagen and gelatin in there. So it's pretty delicious, clean. You get 20 grams of protein. So we thought, okay, well, one, if we can help solve this problem of people feeling rough after having their coffee. Two, if we can support really amazing small farm cooperatives and actually make a meaningful dent into those people's life or impact into those people's lives. And then three, can we just, if our customers were just coming to our site a lot of the time to buy our coffee, can we just get them to bundle coffee? I mean, Prime, can we get them to bundle coffee with that, given they're already oftentimes consuming the two together. So it was both a business decision, a good way to make a meaningful impact to those farms, and also just like a vote on regenerative farming, which is so important to us on the beef side in bovine agriculture, and then also more broadly as we want to vote with our dollars and support the most sustainable farming practices possible. So if we can also do that in the process, that would be a huge win for everybody. At our core, we're trying to ship the most high quality real food products possible. So although we've been very focused on supplements, we're not constraining ourselves to that. We'll be shipping, in my mind, what's the cleanest, most delicious protein bar available in, I want to say Q2.
That's the one I didn't want to bring up, but
Q2, which is just our prime protein here in bar form, sweetened with some honey and dates. There's collagen and colostrum in there as well, and then some tallow, which is a superfood in and of itself. And there's not much else. It depends what the flavors are, but in a fruit forward flavor, there'll be dehydrated berries. In a chocolate flavor, there'll be cocoa powder and cacao, etc. But yeah, it's clean, real food ingredients, no fat binding systems and other things that we see in a lot of other bars these days. So we're super excited, but it's taken very, very long time to nail that because a lot of those bars rely on emulsifiers like a sunflower lecithin, for example, or quote unquote fat binding systems, etc., to keep things together. And we really wanted to ship something that didn't have any of that, but it's hard to nail texture, taste, and also have 20 grams of protein in a bar while still delivering on having really high quality real food ingredients only.
Yeah. Well, one very key differentiator, and last one about Equip is you guys are D2C.
Almost exclusively, yes.
And you own that customer in a way, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I don't mean like own, right? But like you own the customer. So you have that ability to survey. You have that ability to test, right? And I think when you're coming in a market with something that's like kind of goes against the grain, really challenges like what everybody else is doing in health and wellness, it's really key that you guys are so involved in D2C and own that customer to then provide that feedback. Because I can see, well, actually, that was one of my questions. Like, do you think retail is in the future?
Yeah, we need packaging that's retail ready. Our packaging right now is not retail ready, and that's one of the reasons we are doing a big brand refresh. So in my mind, that new packaging will be very much retail ready, which excites me.
Yeah.
But we do think there's a lot of room to grow on the e-com D2C side still. So we're going to triple down on that in 2025, perhaps pursue some smaller scale tests in late 2025, and then consider a broader strategy there. It will probably necessitate different products, formats, etc., which we're looking at all kinds of different opportunities there, but trying to be very thoughtful and methodical about what growth areas we pursue in 2025 while prioritizing staying lean and being very profitable. So that's the top priority.
Yeah. Well, I think it's beautiful that like right now you own that customer and you have that customer base to survey and like get
makes
that
a huge
feedback.
Difference. That's even the reason we shipped this. Well, one of the reasons, partially because it's delicious, but most of all of our other products are sweetened with stevia, which we think is the safest, most delicious, non-nutritive meaning 0 calorie sweetener available, made from the stevia plant, stevia leaf in particular. But we also just want to be conscious of general customer preferences. Even if it's safe, delicious, etc., not everybody wants to consume it. Some people have intolerances. So we thought, why don't we ship a limited time flavor using coconut sugar and monk fruit, and just do a lot of surveys, talk to customers, understand, one, is this attracting new customers that wouldn't buy our current prime protein because they just prefer not to consume stevia, or are only buying unflavored because they want to just choose their own adventure sweetener wise? And then two, is this potentially where the puck is going basically long term? Are people starting to move away from valuing non-nutritive, 0 calorie, 0 carb sweeteners to embracing real sugar from high quality, unrefined sources like coconut sugar, for example, or less refined sources? And that was a really great opportunity for us to test. We thought we had enough stock to last from Black Friday to late February, so about 3-ish months of stock, and we sold out in 72 hours.
I live it.
Yeah, we're not about to switch all of our products to a new sweetener, but it's an interesting thing for us to then talk to customers about and understand why they bought. Was it just because they saw limited time, they thought it might be a delicious flavor? Or two, did we attract a lot of new customers that were really interested in this alternative sweetener? And would they be more interested in consuming more of our products long term if we gave them the opportunity to buy with a different sweetener option? So you can't please everybody.
No.
I mean, a lot of people in the keto crowd and low carb crowd were like, oh, well, I would love to try this, but I can't consume any kind of sugar. So we just have to try to understand what the significant majority of our customers want, where trends are going, give ourselves the opportunity and flexibility to thoughtfully test and just constantly talk to these people to understand what they want from us long term, but also lean towards our own judgment, because our whole team, we've been very thoughtful about how we hire, who we hire. We're still very, very lean relative to others around our size sales wise, but our team is very aligned culturally to our customers and diet wise, nutrition wise, etc. So if we as a group think that we personally would prefer to consume a product because it uses these ingredients, then there's a pretty good chance that we have some alignment with our customers there. Obviously we'll validate that, but generally speaking, like, our preferences are generally well aligned with our customer preferences. So that makes our lives a lot easier because we have a really strong customer understanding and would buy these products if we didn't already work in the business. So
well, that it leads me to one question, but I do want to like just make one point though. I think you're absolutely correct. Like, you're not going to please everybody. People, like, there's going to be different audiences like here and there. And I think what's interesting about this LTO though is I'm very interested to get down to like why they purchase. And I think that a good data point, maybe again, I'm a little bit biased, is starting to like look in the customer support tickets that are coming through and like the data that we're like pulling from that too, because I think you can get some early information about like taste and like how, like if people liked it or they didn't like it, you know?
I was just looking at one yesterday that said, hey, can you produce all your flavors with coconut sugar and monk fruit now? Because I will only buy this flavor or unflavored, which, I mean, obviously one ticket isn't meaningful, but at scale, it's, well, even a few strongly opinionated tickets are enough for me to be like, okay, let's have some more conversations with these people.
Right.
Because a select few will actually create a ticket, whether it's positive, negative, etc., but they're typically not the only people that have that sentiment or have faced that pain point, etc.
Right.
So then once we get some of that feedback, again, positive or negative, it's important for us to then understand if this is just an anomaly or if a lot of people feel this way.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's the key messaging is surveying at every single touch point, right? It's like going out and testing with your audience, especially if you're in a CPG product, right? That has to do with like consuming. And then on the other end of it, like, you have so much valuable information from your point about people spending the time to go out and talk to you is, you know,
100%.
There's value there. There's like something there.
We might as well lean into the fact that we own our customer base, obviously, and do everything we can to just understand their preferences long term. So that's a top priority for us, is just always talking to customers in any way possible and providing the best customer experience possible as well.
Yeah. Last question. So we talked a lot about like the product and we talked a lot about a lean team, but what I'm really curious for you coming into Equip, being the GM, being, you know, here on your own for quite some time, and then now having a team, how is transitioning to leadership? Yeah,
it's been really interesting because when I first stepped in, I was quite literally doing everything from figuring out demand planning to being our in-house finance person to even posting on social media because we didn't have a social media contractor at the time, to spending probably an hour in CX every day till we started working together. And then obviously it's less reliant on me now, which is helpful. But I was doing really, truly everything. And I'm so grateful that there weren't other people around at the time, because it got me to understand every part of the business in a very deep way, and also gave me the opportunity to engage with customers in so many different channels, from email to Facebook to Instagram, to even hopping on calls with them occasionally during big holiday sales, etc., or providing them with my Equip email so that they can email me directly if they have issues. And it was hugely, hugely impactful to understand our customers, learn the business, and gave me the skills I needed to then bring on board a team. So there were really just a few of us before this year, which was unreasonable given the scale at the time, but it was manageable. I mean, we're doing 8 figures with effectively 2 full-time people, which is great, but hugely advantageous to build a proper team and have that vehicle that can scale, and have people that are better in all of those areas like finance, product, supply chain, growth than me, so I can kind of learn from them and let them do their thing. So it's been an interesting transition from being in the weeds every single part of the day to now both being in the weeds because we are still very lean, but also having to jump from being in the weeds to like being very strategic in the same hour, and then also spending a lot of my time managing people as well and building systems so that those people can thrive. I had some of that experience in building my last company, given agencies are a lot more labor intensive and you're effectively selling people's time to scale. So it just necessitated a lot more people. So there is I came in with some experience there, which was super helpful, but I'm still learning a lot and just trying to become a better leader over time. And again, just trying to create that really strong foundation system wise so that we can hopefully double the business again next year and continue kind of getting a stronghold in this beef protein category, but also just shipping better for you supplements than people will otherwise be consuming, and hopefully also setting a higher standard in the supplement industry in terms of transparency, in terms of quality ingredients, because if we can get a lot of people educated on what to look for and how to call BS on other brands, basically, then ultimately we can just level the playing field and everybody will be better for it.
Well, I know that I've learned a lot answering tickets and like running like the CX side of things. So I think that, I mean, granted that's like more internal, but I think the care in the CX and the care of that transparency is really going to change the industry in beef protein. And I think overall just supplements in general. Right. There's just a lot of bullshit out there.
Yeah, there sure is. And we're not the only ones setting a higher standard. There's a lot of great brands out there. So we don't see those people as competitors. We see the people we want to sort of defeat or chip away at are the brands that are not being transparent and shipping garbage. We think it's great if those other brands that are setting a new standard for transparency, shipping really great real food products also win, because everybody's just going to be better for it and healthier long term. So we'll do whatever we can to collaborate, and rising tide lifts all boats. So
and at the end of the day, every audience is different. Like everybody's core audience and purchaser is like can be so different. You 100%. Know, there's everybody can eat.
And we're just much more focused on mission too, given we often say to our customers, prioritize whole foods, which seems counterintuitive as a supplement brand. But if all of our customers exclusively ate local, real food, whole food products and put us out of business as a result, it would be a very big win, because everybody would just be better for it. Obviously, we produce stuff that is real food ingredients and great for people to consume, great for health, but ultimately nothing beats real, whole, local food. So we're trying to do our best to share that message while also building a great business in the meantime, because we're there to help people, obviously, when they can't get the nutrition they need with real foods, which is also a challenge, as a lot of our food supply is being stripped of nutrients over time, prioritizing scale, and then also when people just don't have time, don't have the appetite, etc. So realistically, not everybody is going to be able to consume 100% whole foods, and we're there to help when they can, but that's our priority, is telling people to do so whenever they can.
And just consume better. you know? Well, we've reached the end of the road, although there was quite a few other questions that I wanted to ask you. But tell the people where they can reach you if anybody has any questions about Equip, your journey, any of that.
I'm not super active on socials, but if you search Kieran Mathew, I think you can find me on Twitter or Instagram. And Kieran@equipfoods.com is my email.
Yeah.
Hopefully people reach out with thoughtful questions and not sass pitches, but
yeah,
we'll
no
see.
sass pitches.
We'll see.
This is solely a homie chat, okay? Well, I really appreciate you coming on, man, and I will pass any questions on to you because there was even more stuff that I had for you. So we'll maybe have to do round 2.
Absolutely. Would love to. Yeah, it's fun chatting.
And thank you everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Dang, we've made it to the end of the podcast and you're still here. So thank you so much for listening to Above the Fold podcast. For the best of this episode and every episode, be sure to follow us on Instagram and my YouTube channel. And for deeper dives on the secrets to brand success, don't forget to subscribe to my weekly newsletter, Sunday Postcards. All right, my dudes and gals, see you next week.